Hi there. This is my third video on living aboard a boat. This video is going to talk about, is it possible for you? Various reasons. First big one is, can you afford it? You know what, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a decent boat, and shopping around counts for an awful lot. If you have the time and patience, you can get some pretty good deals, particularly in the off season. People don't want to store their boats or pay moorage fees for the winter months when they have no intention of being at the boat. Well, that 6 months of moorage you can basically kind of get the in between on that when you're making an offer on a boat. That counts for a fair bit. A big thing about affording a boat isn't just the purchase of the boat and covering your moorage fees, but there's also the maintenance. And maintenance is kind of two things. The maintenance you know about, that you have to do every year on your boat, and it's pretty easy to figure out what you're going to need to do for your particular boat. And a little bit of research will go the long ways. But more importantly, you got to be prepared for spending money on the maintenance you're not expecting. Because let's face it, everything you own is on this boat, right? So basically anything waterline or below needs to be fixed ASAP. You can't mess around. You got to fix it right away. And likewise, if you have an engine problem or something like that, and you plan on using your boat, you can't put off fixing it. You need to fix it before you take your boat out again. Otherwise, you're going to strand yourself out there. A sailboat, well, yeah, you can maybe get back close and get somebody to help you in, but really you're at the mercy of the weather and that. It's just not a safe thing to do. You need to have a reliable power source. I think you do anyway. There's people that sail without any power and have done so, but I think those are few and far between and are probably far more skilled than I am. I'm quite happy with a small engine, but I need to know it's working. Anyway, that's enough on can you afford it. It kind of makes sense. Another thing to consider is, do you have enough time to really make it worthwhile and be able to actually enjoy it? Not necessarily is it possible for you, but is it really worthwhile for you, I guess is what it's saying. Let's face it, if you're working really long hours, or in my personal case, working and going to school, a boat just kind of starts turning into just an additional hassle. And yeah, while you can still enjoy it, it starts to wander into the kind of not worth it territory. So you want to make sure you're in a time and place in your life where you can actually sit back, enjoy it, and make it worth your while. Again, if your boat is a fixture on the dock side and isn't moving around, not such a big deal. All of a sudden it's just waterfront property effectively, and you can make your own determination from that. Another big thing is, are there slips available in your area, and do they accept liveaboards? Can you get away with it? Lots of people pull it off in marinas, and the marinas don't technically allow for it, but they kind of still pull it off. I'm not sure I recommend that. I think that's more of a statement on how sneaky you want to be, I guess. I personally want to be all on the up and up on if I'm living aboard a boat, and I won't do it at a marina that doesn't openly accept such a thing happening, or I've come to some kind of an agreement with the marina staff that I'm able to do so. Slips quite often are something that you have to be on a waiting list for, particularly for decent slips. And as your boat gets larger, it may be harder and harder to find those slips. It may be worth your while to find a slip before you go looking for a boat. Let's face it, there's always boats up for sale, and it's just a question of how good of a buy is it, or so on and so forth, or how far away is it, and you'll have to sail it up to your slip, or have somebody bring it up to you if you don't have the time. There are ways of getting around that. What you can't get around is if you need to be in a certain location, you need to have a slip ready for that boat. you may be in for a big wait for it. So look into that first. Don't go select your boat and then find out you don't have a slip for it and have the disappointment of not being able to purchase your boat because there's nowhere to put it. Another thing to consider is the marina facilities need to be adequate for living aboard a boat. You know, if you're not going to use your head on the boat, I personally wouldn't be a fan of this, but it's most certainly doable. At my particular marina, the bathrooms are basically, there's a combination lock, and only marina patrons have access to those bathrooms. They're not public bathrooms. There's showers, there's laundry machines, it's where we go get our mail. It's a really good setup, and they're very clean. The showers and bathrooms are spotless. They're beautifully looked after. They don't just clean them once a day. I think they clean them several times a day, and there's really not that much use out of them, so they're always perfect. It wouldn't be a big deal for me to go up there and use the bathrooms all the time, but it's a hassle and I don't want to do it. My marina is particularly well set up. It has each dock finger, which has a boat on each side, of course, has 2 high-pressure water spigots, which allow even large holding tanks to be filled up rapidly. I cannot use a standard garden hose. The thing would just pop. It would split and explode, and there'd be a spray of water all over the place if I just used a Canadian Tire gardening hose on the water spigots here. I have to get high pressure hoses to fill up my water tanks. Not a big deal. They're readily available. You pay probably $50 or $60 for a 25-foot spool for them, so it's not a big deal. But you just got to make sure you do have the hoses available. But I can, you know, as opposed to taking a half hour to fill my water tanks, it takes me 5 or 10 minutes tops. So it's a definite advantage. More importantly, each dock finger here has a suction fitting for pumping out holding tanks. This means it takes me, without even moving the boat, no more than 5 minutes. And 5 minutes is probably an exaggeration. There's a hose coiled up on a dock fixture about 8 slips down from me. I just walk down there, grab the hose, hook it up to the fitting, screw in the fitting on my deck, hit the T-handle, and, you know, pump out my tank, close it off, stick the hose in the ocean, run a bunch of seawater through it to get a fresh water cleansing of the suction system, unhook it, coil up the hose and put it back. I'm done. I can probably do it, now that I've done it so much, I can probably do it in about 2 or 3 minutes. It's like if I have a couple spare minutes before I'm heading out in the morning or whatever, I can just, done. And that's really handy for somebody who's living aboard. That, and I have a very large holding tank. I made sure I installed a very, very large holding tank in my boat, just in case bad weather hits and I don't want to have to pump it out. I can put it off for literally a couple weeks if I'm not too crazy with what I'm pumping through. You know, don't put cooking scraps and stuff like that in there, and it'll reduce the amount. I think my holding tank's something like 130 liters, if somebody wants an actual number. So anyway, that kind of runs through, is it possible for you. I'll go over to holding tank, more on things to consider when choosing a boat. And that will be the next video, which will be video number 4. Anyway, I hope this has been useful or kind of amusing for people. If you have any questions or comments, do leave them below. You know what, I live on board a boat all the time, so there may be really obvious things missing. So if you've been through all the videos and you're going, well, what about, you know what, ask me. It could very well be I need to throw up another video up on YouTube or amend some current footage I have. Anyway, have yourself a good day.